She had just moved to a new school carrying only her courage and a dream to fit in. No one expected the new girl with dark skin and a bright smile to become the center of a storm that would change everything in just 1 minute. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her. Jasmine Waker had always known that being new meant being invisible, at least at first. Moving from town to town, leaving friends behind and starting over every year had made her cautious, almost invisible at times, but this time she told herself things would be different. She had a plan: observe first, adapt second, survive always. The bus ride to Willow Creek High was silent for her, but inside her thoughts raced. She wondered if the students would accept her, if she could make friends, if she would be able to walk through the hallways without feeling eyes on her every step. Her skirt was neatly pressed, her backpack spotless, her hair braided perfectly, yet she felt exposed. The moment she stepped into the crowded hallway, she felt it, a cold wave of judgmental stares. Students whispered, some openly laughed, and her chest tightened. She tried to ignore them, focusing on finding her locker, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. And then she saw them: Madison, Megan, and Kara, the unchallenged queens of the school. Their reputation for cruelty was well known, and Jasmine's arrival was immediately a challenge to their control. Madison's eyes locked onto Jasmine as she whispered to her friends loud enough for some nearby students to hear, "Look at her skirt, does she really think she belongs here?" Laughter followed, sharp and cutting. Jasmine felt her stomach twist, but she forced herself to keep walking, refusing to show fear. But fear was exactly what the bullies were after. Megan lunged forward, suddenly grabbing the edge of Jasmine's skirt and tearing it down the side in a swift, violent motion. The fabric ripped, with a loud sound echoing through the hallway, silencing some students and drawing shocked looks from others. Jasmine froze, her heart pounding, her face flaming with humiliation. Her instinct was to run, to hide, to disappear, but something inside her refused to break. She drew in a deep, trembling breath, clutched her books tighter, and looked Madison directly in the eye. There was no fear there, only quiet defiance. For a moment the laughter faltered. Madison blinked, surprised that Jasmine had not crumbled. Loudly crying. The bell rang, cutting through the tension. Jasmine calmly tied her torn skirt into a makeshift wrap, her hands steady, her back straight. She walked to class as if nothing had happened, her composure unnerving the bullies. Other students stared, whispering among themselves. Some were impressed, others curious, but Jasmine had made her first mark without saying a word. During lunch the confrontation escalated. The same group of girls sat across from her, expecting Jasmine to collapse under ridicule. "You think you're better than us?" Madison sneered, her voice sharp and demanding. Jasmine smiled faintly, calm and measured. "Better than being cruel always." The words rippled through the cafeteria. Students murmured in surprise. For the first time the bullies realized they were no longer in full control. Jasmine's quiet strength drew attention from students who had previously stayed silent. Some, unnoticed, moved closer to sit beside her. They were students she had helped earlier. Small gestures like returning a dropped pencil or sharing notes, and they now formed a subtle wall of support. Over the next few days Jasmine's quiet courage began to transform the school's social landscape. Madison, Megan, and Kara tried repeatedly to undermine her, but each attempt was met with calm intelligence. When Madison mocked her in history class, Jasmine turned the tables with a question that impressed both the teacher and her classmates. The bullies' confidence began to crumble. The turning point came in gym class. The girls cornered Jasmine in the locker room, ready to humiliate her again, but Jasmine had anticipated them. She dodged their advances, her movements confident, and responded with words sharper than any weapon. "Hurting me doesn't make you strong, it only shows how weak you really are." The entire class watched. Silence fell, broken only by the shallow breaths of the bullies. For the first time they felt fear, the humbling kind that comes from realizing they had been bested not by violence but by strength of character. Within minutes the balance of power had shifted. The bullies began pleading for forgiveness, their arrogance replaced by desperation. "We're sorry," Madison stammered. "We didn't know, please." Jasmine looked at them, not with hatred but with quiet authority. She nodded once, signaling mercy without weakness. The school buzzed with whispers about Jasmine's courage. Students admired her ability to handle adversity, and teachers recognized her maturity. By the end of the week she had become a symbol of resilience. The hallway that had once intimidated her now bore witness to her triumph. But Jasmine's journey was far from over. The bullies, now humbled, began plotting subtle forms of revenge, trying to regain their lost social power. At the same time Jasmine faced the challenge of navigating new friendships, balancing her desire for acceptance with her own integrity. She understood that every small choice she made could ripple through the school, changing perceptions and alliances. Her story reached beyond the school walls when a student recorded part of the hallway confrontation and uploaded it online within hours. The video went viral. Comments poured in from across the country praising Jasmine's bravery and composure. She became a symbol of empowerment, a reminder that true strength lies not in striking back but in standing tall when challenged. The following week at Willow Creek High began with a tense energy that hung over the school like a storm cloud. Jasmine Walker, now quietly known as the girl who had faced the bullies with courage, walked through the hallways with her head held high. Every step she took seemed to ripple with confidence, and whispers followed her like a shadow. Some students admired her, others feared the newfound respect she commanded, and the bullies, they were calculating, trying to regain their lost authority. Madison, Megan and Kara had spent every moment since the previous week plotting their whispered meetings in the cafeteria and empty classrooms centered around regaining power, humiliating Jasmine and restoring their social dominance. They underestimated Jasmine, thinking her courage was just a phase, that she would eventually break under relentless pressure. They couldn't have been more wrong. The first challenge came in an unexpected form, a school assembly announcing a talent showcase. Jasmine had never seen herself as talented in the conventional sense, but she realized this was an opportunity. The bullies tried to intimidate her before she could sign up, whispering threats and sneers. Jasmine, unshaken, simply smiled. She signed her name on the roster, the pen steady in her hand, feeling the eyes of everyone around her. By the day of the showcase, tension was palpable. Students whispered, teachers tried to maintain order, and the bullies sat huddled together plotting humiliation. Jasmine's turn came and she walked on stage with quiet grace. Instead of performing something typical, she told a story about courage, resilience, and standing up to those who try to break you. She spoke from experience, her voice carrying not arrogance but authority. The audience was captivated. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Students cheered, teachers nodded with respect, and even the bullies were speechless. For the first time, Madison and her friends felt powerless. The tables had turned entirely. Their attempts to control the social hierarchy had failed spectacularly. But the story was far from over. After the assembly, the bullies tried one last desperate attempt. They cornered Jasmine in the library, thinking isolation would give them power. "You think you're untouchable?" Madison hissed. Megan smirked, holding a stack of papers meant to embarrass Jasmine. Kara circled, eyes sharp and calculating. Jasmine didn't flinch. She calmly placed her backpack on the table, her eyes steady. "I'm not untouchable, I'm just not afraid," she said. Her calm, unwavering tone unsettled them. It was as if she had drawn an invisible line between their cruelty and her dignity, a line they could not cross. The confrontation escalated when Megan lunged to knock her books off the table. Jasmine sidestepped, letting the momentum carry Megan forward harmlessly, and delivered a single sentence that silenced them all. "Trying to break me only exposes your weakness." The words were precise, sharp, and impossible to ignore. The bullies froze, realizing they had no leverage. Jasmine walked out of the library with her head held high, leaving Madison, Megan, and Kara in stunned silence. The story of their defeat spread quickly throughout the school. By the end of the day, students who had once whispered in fear now walked beside her, inspired by her courage. Even the teachers began referencing her as an example of composure, bravery, and emotional intelligence. That evening, the story took on a new life. Online videos of the cafeteria confrontation, the gym class encounter, and Jasmine's speech at the talent showcase were uploaded and shared widely. Comments poured in from all over the country. People admired her poise, her ability to handle bullying without retaliation, and the grace with which she forgave those who had wronged her. Social media buzzed with messages calling her a role model, a true example of strength and resilience. But Jasmine's journey was not without personal reflection. She thought about the people who had tried to hurt her, wondering why they acted with such cruelty. She realized that the bullies were themselves insecure, projecting fear and weakness onto others. This understanding did not excuse their behavior, but it helped Jasmine approach the situation with compassion alongside strength. A few weeks later, the school hosted a student council meeting to discuss issues like bullying, inclusivity, and school culture. Jasmine was invited to speak, and she accepted without hesitation. Standing before the student body and faculty, she recounted her first week at Willow Creek, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned. Her speech was heartfelt, empowering, and transformative. Students listened in awe, many taking notes, others quietly reflecting on their own actions. The bullies who had initially scoffed at her sat quietly at the back. They listened, perhaps for the first time understanding the consequences of their actions. By the end of the meeting, there was a subtle shift in their demeanor. Madison approached Jasmine afterward, words hesitant but sincere. We didn't understand, we're sorry." Jasmine looked at her, considered the apology, and nodded. Once forgiveness had been earned, but lessons had also been taught. The story of Jasmine Walker soon became a symbol beyond Willow Creek High. Students at other schools shared her video, parents discussed it with their children, and educators highlighted her courage as a teaching moment. Jasmine's strength lay not in striking back but in remaining composed, confident and true to herself in the face of adversity. She became a living example of how one person's bravery could inspire an entire community. As the semester drew to a close, Jasmine reflected on how far she had come. She had walked through fear, faced humiliation and transformed it into empowerment. Friends who had once been strangers were now loyal allies. The bullies who had tried to dominate her were now humbled, perhaps wiser, certainly changed, and she herself had discovered a resilience she had never known she possessed. Her story ended with a quiet, powerful message: courage is not about confronting others with anger or revenge. True courage is standing tall when the world tries to knock you down, showing strength through composure and transforming fear into confidence. Jasmine had embodied all of this and more. And so, as viewers watch this story unfold, remember the lesson she taught: no act of cruelty can overpower a heart full of strength, dignity and self-respect. From a torn skirt to national recognition, Jasmine Walker proved that 1 minute of courage could change everything. So viewers, I want to ask you, from which part of the country are you watching this video today?